Morning.
Morning, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Oh, that went on quick.
That's better. Oh, happy Valentine's shirt. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I have our Valentine's shirt on today. I'm gonna be right back. I got a little bit of a hoarse voice this morning. I'm gonna get some water.
All right, I'm gonna go put YouTube on.
Okay.
All right. How's the weather there this morning?
Cold. Aside from that, not bad. It's up to 18, actually, Mike,
Oh, that's not too bad.
with wind up to 12. Going clean to 32.
Well, we're a little warmer than that, so.
Yeah, but doesn't Kathy miss the cold weather?
No,
Heard her, right? She's up. She said no. My sister is leaving tomorrow, and this year at least the weather was warmer. Last year was cold.
last night we were at a Super Bowl party and she got a notice on her phone saying to check her flight because there's possibilities of delays. She's hoping the delays here in Florida not get stuck in Baltimore.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard all that. My sister got a notice that there could be delays, and she says, "Oh," she says, "My luck." She says, "I'll be stuck in Baltimore." So
In Florida.
instead of Florida. So
Oh, yeah. Charm City. Hello.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you,
Miss Lowell? Oh, Mass Lowell.
UMass Lowell, Riverhawks. Did you stay up and watch the Super Bowl last night, Cliff?
No. I watched part of it and then I gave up.
Yeah.
My wife said I'm tired. And that was
It was great. Cliff, you good to go?
yeah.
All right. Amy, you want to see it? And Amy, you go back.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Dawn Patrol. I'm Cliff Krieger, your host. I'm joined by Eileen Delrossi and by Mike Smith. As you can tell, Mike Smith is already into Valentine's week, and we're hoping Fru and Dr. Bill Johnson will be zooming in soon.
Dr. Johnson's
Bean
arriving
is
now.
pushing the Riverhawks wearing a UMass Lowell sort of sweater.
Hoodie, UMass Lowell. It's a hoodie.
Oh,
And I really like that Valentine's Day shirt there, Mike.
Yep, I have another one to wear later this week, so.
Make sure you take a picture and send it in to John so we can admire it.
The weather, 18 degrees. It's going to be clear, getting all the way up to 32, but with 12-mile-an-hour wind. So that's, and then snow later in the week.
Yeah, how much are we supposed to get?
I thought it was just a couple inches.
Yeah, I heard mostly to the south of us. This last snowstorm.
As you kids might be able to see on the screen there now, it's a little windy this morning, so it's a good day to drive little Eileen or little Michael to school today.
Little Eileen.
Does that look like one of those wires is sagging in that picture of the front of the school?
That's that's coming over my house like a telephone pole.
Yeah.
These wires here come over to the studio.
Oh, so it's your fault.
Well, no, it's like we're shooting this off the roof of the house next door, so it's west of here. One house west.
Yeah.
So if I move the camera, let me move the camera a little bit. You can see the studio, and I'll move the camera. Just
All
a
right.
tad.
Well, there's Bill Johnson.
So it's the angle.
That's my house right there. That bay window right there, that's the studio right there. This weather thing don't work no more. Just conked out. We'll get rid of it in the summertime. But that's the house next door. That's the studio.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning. Sorry, I was having computer difficulties. I had to join you on my phone.
Oh, those things happen. Today in 1840, Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom married Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, and went on to have a bunch of children. In 1861, Jefferson Davis was notified by telegraph that he had been elected or had been chosen the provisional president of the Confederate States of America. That's him on the right of Bill's screen.
No, it's not. Although he was from Missouri. This gentleman here, Adam Pfeiffer Eby.
Yeah. In 1906, HMS Dreadnought, the first of a revolutionary new brand of battleship, was christened, to be followed in quick order by a bunch of other dreadnoughts, battleships. In 1962, during the Cold War, captured U.S. U-2 spy plane pilot Gary Balser was exchanged for Soviet spy Rudolf Abel. And on this day in 1967, the 25th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution was ratified. This is dealing with presidential succession. In 1890, Boris Pasternak, a Russian poet and novelist and literary translator, a Nobel Prize winner, was born. He wrote Dr. Zhivago. I think my wife and I went to see Dr. Zhivago on our first date. In 1893, Jimmy Durante was born. We all remember Jimmy Durante, don't we? No?
No, I want to know about the doctor you went to go see on your first date with your wife.
Dr. Zhivago, the movie.
Oh, it was a movie.
He was a birth control specialist.
That's what I thought. I kept thinking about, what is it, Dr. Ruth? Is that who it was?
Yep.
Yeah.
He was the Dr. Ruth of his day.
Dr. Zhivago was about the early days of the Russian Revolution.
That's a hot first date. That's hot.
Oh, it was.
You needed Dr. Ruth.
That was a very, very popular movie, Eileen. It's,
Well,
I think it won an Oscar, Cliff, didn't it?
I think so.
Dr. Vagajo. What'd you do after the movie, Cliff?
After the movie. I don't remember.
Mm.
I can't remember if we went out to dinner or if we went back to her place.
Oh.
Ooh. 1957, Laura Ingalls Wilder passed away.
Mike, you get
You
the
know
gold.
who that is, right?
Comment from the audience. Michael, you get the gold star for your shirt today.
Eileen, you know who Laura Ingalls Wilder is, right?
Not intimately, but I'm sure you're going to tell me all about her right now.
Come on, Cliff, let me say, even I know. It's she for a Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, okay. All right. I know. All right.
Cliff, I looked up Dr. Zhivago. So it was nominated for 10 Oscars and won 5, including Best Adapted Screenplay, Original Score, Cinematography, Art Direction, and Costume Design.
Not bad.
It's a pretty famous movie. So
It sounds like Cliff's marriage. He wins 5 out of 10.
Those 5 are all from Martha.
The big thing is, we've been married for 58 years.
Wow.
Wow. Impressive.
58. Is it your anniversary? Or
Not
close
today.
to? Is it close to it?
Which one?
The dating anniversary, Dr. Zhivago.
You know, you might be right. Would it be about now?
Yeah, 58 years? Or wait, longer?
Well, it was 1966. Because we were married in 1966.
And it's like 6:06, so I can't do that math right now.
All right. In 20...
the sixes.
Go ahead. Someone
I
was...
said a lot of sixes in there.
Yeah. Shirley Temple passed away on this day in 2014. Most of you are too young to know who Shirley Temple is.
What was it?
I know who Shirley Temple is.
Yeah, and I know who it is, Cliff. Come on.
And so don't I, and I'm going to ask you now, what's the actress that plays her? What's her name?
I have no idea.
Oh, really? Like, I feel like that's a famous name, too. Shirley Temple. Got nothing. All right. I'm surprised you didn't have her real name.
That is her real name, Shirley Temple.
Well, you got the chick from House on the Prairie's real name, but you don't have Shirley Temple's real name?
That's
That
her
is
real
her
name. That's her real name. She was an American diplomat.
Real name.
Oh.
Well, actually, when she got married, I think it was Shirley Temple Black.
Exactly. Yes, sir, Mike.
That's correct, Shirley Temple Black.
That was her marriage name.
There we go.
Today is the feast of Saint Scholastica.
Oh, yeah. Let's get a picture of Saint how do you say that, Cliff?
Saint Scholastica.
Saint.
Is that
How do you spell Scholastica?
With an S.
SCHOALAS.
O-L-A-S.
Oh, wow. All right.
oh, if the real question is, what is she the saint of?
Well, she
Valentine's Day shirts.
the
I don't think Cliff would recognize this this nun?
She founded the Benedictine nuns.
Oh, okay.
But she was a saint of Valentine's Day shirts, Mike.
So in Malta today is the feast of St. Paul's shipwreck.
St. Paul's shipwreck
Yeah.
in Malta?
Yes.
Malta's a lovely place.
It is a lovely place. My youngest son and his wife went there on their honeymoon.
Well, I remember getting off the ship there, and they had like a little boat that brought you from the ship to the dock, brought you onto the dock, and they had a sunning herself on the rocks on this lounge chair was this beautiful woman who had no clothes on at all. And she just lied there enjoying the sun, and we enjoyed our visit a little bit better because of her participation in our visit.
Well,
Malta's a nice place.
I remember the airport there is Lucca because it was a possible emergency landing strip flying across the Mediterranean.
Cliff, do you ever land in Gibraltar?
No.
Okay.
Okay. So I thought I'd start out with President Trump's Gaza plan, which analysts say is unworkable. So does he really mean it? He wants to evacuate Gaza and turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East?
I think it's a bargaining chip.
Well, I think this statement "evacuate" is doing a lot of lifting. I think you mean forcibly remove is what his plan is, right?
Well, he's saying no U.S. forces involved. So
If the Gazans don't want to leave, you have to move them forcibly, right? I mean, this is approaching a war crime, if I'm not mistaken, to move people from a land they live on when they don't want to leave.
It's going to be interesting. I think it's a bargaining chip. That's all it really is, a bargaining chip.
What's he bargaining for?
He's not going to tell you. The reason he's a billionaire is he's pretty lucky with negotiations.
I think he's bargaining for peace. We don't have peace. The people in Gaza have not decided to live and prosper where they live. They're all waiting to go back to their homes that they had in 1947. I think he's trying to create a new reality and trying to force the nations in the area to get their act together.
Well, he's making many, many, many people upset.
Well, that's because we live in a democratic state. Now, if we were in Texas, we wouldn't be talking about this at all. We live in a very democratic state, and to my Democratic friends, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you know most of the people in the Democratic Party are going to whine for the next 3 years and 49 weeks.
3 years and 49 weeks.
3 years.
Well, Trump's been in office at least 2 weeks, so it's a little less than that for the Democratic listeners. They can look forward to an early reprieve.
I think the real question we should be asking is not rebuilding Gaza or any of that stuff. It doesn't matter what they do, they can rebuild it. But until they change the views and the attitude and acceptance and tolerance of certain people in that area, you're going to do this all over again. These problems have been going on for decades, if not hundreds of years, for issues. So until you can get enough people over to say enough is enough, we need to change the way we look at things, we're going to run into the same problems again. If Hamas is still around, or whatever group you want to name, when you want to look at annihilating another type of people or another country, nothing's going to change. So, I mean, look at what's happened because of this. There's nothing left there. It's just all rubble. It's it's worse than World War II, some of the areas. I mean, literally, it's just, I mean, think of it this way. We saw pictures of the fires in California where there was nothing left. That's what it's like, only on a much larger scale. How do we prevent this from happening again? That's the real question I'm asking. Because, it's like history repeats itself. We don't learn from the problems that we have.
Comment from the audience. Unfortunately, there will never be peace in that region. That commenter has a very good point. Having visited Israel, they're born to, when they slap the kid on the behind for the kiddo's first breath, they tell the kid, a Palestinian did that, or an Israeli did that at birth. The hatred goes that deep.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that until you can change the attitudes and the views of everybody, I mean, we're just going to repeat ourselves. I mean, this has been repeated, I think this is one of the worst scales of the problem, but this is not the first time we've had issues like this in that area.
Well, Mike, when I was there, okay, and I can look up the year, but it's like 5, 6 years, maybe 7 years ago. The Israeli government thought nothing of shutting off the electricity for a week in certain parts of Israel. And I know they used to hit Gaza pretty bad. And so how much of this do you take, Mike? You head out to your farm of market basket and you buy a week's worth of food and you go home and you find out there's no power. So you go you rely on a generator, you plug your whole house into that. Now, at 3 o'clock in the morning, the Israelis will put the electricity back on, shut your generator off, and then shut the power off a minute later. So it's ongoing stuff but the Israeli government treats the Palestinian, the Gaza Strip, terribly. And you look at national TV, we see all these formerly captured Israeli being brought back, paraded in front of the camera. I don't see too many Palestinians being paraded in front of the camera. How well do they look from when they were captured? And so even through today, the media treats the Palestinians like a second-hand citizen. And they're not an equal. That's how the media treats it, and I think that's how the Israeli government treats it.
Oh, John, I agree with you. I didn't mean just on the Palestinian side. When I meant the views need to change, I meant everybody there. I mean, I know where you're coming from, and I agree. I mean, it'll take all sides to change this, and until they're willing to do stuff and change, the problem is if you have I really think, and I'm always hopeful, that the Palestinians and the Israelis could come to some kind of way of coexisting. But when you have fanatical groups like Hamas in there, that just upsets everything, and there's no chance of peace. So
I want to mention, Mike, I think it's important that you also have groups on the Israeli side who do not want peace. They want to kill all the Palestinians, every single one of them.
I agree.
I think since both of those groups are getting their way, those are the two groups they want to fight. It's maybe not the majority of the people, but I certainly think the United States has to be extraordinarily careful in who it supports, who it says is okay, who it sends money to, who it rebuilds for, all of those things are really dangerous. If the U.S. does anything in that part of the world, it's our problem. And as you pointed out, Mike, I'm not sure it's a solvable problem. We can't solve it. With money, with guns, the United States, we can't solve it. So I'm not sure we really want to wade into this problem and make it ours. More of it ours. It is our. We own it a little bit now, but we'll really own it if we do something like this plan from President Trump.
A comment from the audience. I'd rather have DJT, meaning Donald Trump, putting his time into uncovering the corruption in this country. That ain't gonna be happening.
Well, I think it's a fair comment, right? Like, there's plenty to do here. I might disagree with the characterization, but there's plenty to do here. It's good for the president to focus here.
I agree.
But there's a big group of people in the United States who believe that it's fundamental that we support Israel. I don't know how big I'd say that is. I'd say 25%.
Are you saying this for religious reasons or for political, democratic reasons? What are these people thinking? Which people are you talking about? Because there are groups of people who, for religious reasons, think we should support Israel unconditionally.
Absolutely. I think you're right. They are. They think that this is God acting, bringing Israel back together.
Are those the people you're talking about specifically,
Yeah.
Cliff?
Yeah.
Okay.
These are
I'm
the
not
same-
sure U.S. policy should be made in the name of people who have, they don't have a majority view in Christians in the world, and they don't have a majority view in the United States. So I'm not sure we should make political actions as the United States in order to defend religious views held by a small minority.
Yeah,
Well,
I wouldn't call it a small minority.
Well, I want to bring it back around. The Abraham Accords was a good start moving in the direction. Unfortunately, there were groups on probably both sides that did not want that to happen. Because if they can get the surrounding other majority of countries in the region to recognize Israel and coexist with them, then a lot of this problem would go away. That, again, until we can get enough people changing their views in that region, it's just going to repeat itself. It's where there's no solution. So I think there was a start with the Abraham Accords, and because maybe the groups who don't want peace, some of this has happened because they don't want that to happen.
Good morning, Fru.
Good morning, John.
I'm going to make a comment. I got a comment from the audience here. I'll blow it up, and then you guys can continue. The Democratic wing of the American Mafia showed up at the Department of Education. They tried begging their way into the building. I thought it was a Saturday Night Live skit. Interesting. I didn't hear that story. Back to you, Cliff. Thank you for your
Okay.
comment.
So, yeah, I think that Mike's point about the Abraham Accords is a good one. I thought that it was unfortunate that in 2020 the new president elected to sort of go sideways on that and call Saudi Arabia a pariah nation. I didn't think that was very helpful. But
Well, it couldn't have been in 2020 because he wasn't Biden.
I'm sorry,
talking about Joe Biden.
2021.
It could have been 2021.
yeah,
But you also have them viciously attacking and murdering their own citizens in consulates, tricking them into coming in and getting murdered. I'm not sure that's behavior we really want to call normal, or it's okay, don't worry about that. This is what Russia does, and it's not something we should normalize.
I agree. They should not have done that. They got one reporter. Granted, he was from the Washington Post, but even so.
Be careful, Cliff. In humor, we can joke about this, but we're on the air now.
Well,
Yeah, and it's the issue again is I think the majority. Well, I shouldn't say that. People in the United States again think that everybody else in the world is like us, and they don't have an understanding of how other countries and other people look at things, and that's that's part of our problem. People in the U.S., because we're a big country, take for granted the rights and freedoms we have. And a lot of people assume that it's like that all over the world. I had a discussion recently with a person from Canada about freedom of speech. He goes, "Oh yeah, we've got freedom of speech, it's guaranteed." I said, "Show me where in your Constitution it says that." Because in the U.S. it is, but I looked at it, they don't guarantee freedom of speech in Canada. That's our neighbor, and they don't even guarantee it. So that's part of the issues that we have here with the public, is that they don't understand how things are in the rest of the world. And they assume what they're reading in the media or seeing on the media is, they just don't understand it.
Yeah, I think, Mike, you raise a great point. In the United States, we don't collectively really hate another culture, language group, social group, or anything like that. We've fought wars with the United Kingdom and 2 wars with them. Yeah, we have a good relationship with them. It's only 50 some odd years ago, we were at war with Vietnam, and now in that area, we have the closest relationship with Vietnam of any nation in that part of the world. And so it's hard as an American to appreciate there are some groups, there are some tribes or nations who hate and want the elimination of another tribe or group, and that's what they're driving. One of the driving things of them is, and it's hard to appreciate that as an American because we don't have that history with any other group.
Well, Bill, we have such a diverse society here in our country.
Sure.
Look at Japan that President Trump just met with the Prime Minister. That was one of our big enemies during World War II, and now they're an ally. But their society is very homogeneous. Same thing with China. Same thing with Iran, Iraq, even Russia. These are homogeneous societies in a lot of ways compared to the United States. We're kind of a unique entity or country in the world compared to most others.
Sure.
So, speaking of all that, Mike, what's going on in New Zealand where they've given personhood to a mountain?
Yeah, I did read up on that. I said I
did not process the issue. What's the issue?
Okay, so the Maori tribes there, the original people in the country, in New Zealand, they look at things a little differently for a history and how they look at nature. And so they tend to name things that are natural, like mountains or streams and that, and they consider it a living being. So recently in New Zealand, they named a mountain and gave it personhood. So they look at it as a human, as part of their group, their tribe. So it's just the way they look at things.
So like a corporation in the USA.
I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
Like a corporation in the USA?
No, it's not a corporation. They actually look at it as a human being. It's just like any other human being. It has the same rights as any other human being. A living being.
Physically, Mike, do they feed the mountain? Do they give it water? Or do they just say hello? They just look at it?
It's part of nature. The American native tribe look at nature similarly. They haven't made a mountain a person, but it's just the way their group and tribe looks at things.
Okay, thanks.
So I'm wondering though if this gives it legal status. If my house floods from water coming down off the mountain, can I then sue the mountain in court and put sanctions on the mountain and have some economic recovery? Is it really legally an entity?
It is considered a human, and that's that's a good point. I never thought of that, Bill. I'll have to ask my son about that. If they look, but they look at it as, somebody that has rights just like any other human. So that's interesting. Well, it has to do with the treaty. I think it has to do something with treaty of who owned the lands and that. And so they wanted it back, and that's how they look at it. I think it was given back to the Maori tribes, the land there. And I read through the articles, and they look at it as a human.
So, Mike, I thought that the Maoris and the Englishers were getting along pretty well, but I've read an article within the last couple of weeks that says the Maori are not happy.
Well, I think they're not happy because similar to what happened in the United States and even Canada is that the treaties were signed, and it's the interpretation of the treaties is where the sticking points are. So now it's gone to the courts, and this is what the courts have decided for the interpretation of the treaties. And they want this back. It's about getting their land back and their areas back and protected for their tribes.
A comment from the audience: the mountain has insurance, but the people in California don't, to Mike's point.
Good
Okay.
point. Fru?
Yes, Cliff.
Oh, there you are. Okay. So, last week we talked about...
Well, Cliff, about the Maoris, let me try to comment.
the what?
I mean about the Maoris.
Yeah.
One thing that the West, and mostly Americans who are origins from Europe, is that they just feel that their own thinking is the universal and the dominant and must be accepted around the world. You see, before they came to these places, these people existed. They have their language, they have their culture. Just the mere fact that they speak English, it doesn't mean that you will strip themselves of their identity, their names, and their culture and everything. If you look in Africa, I will speak to that. The colonial imperialists, they name streets, have their effigies all over Africa, and destroyed the indigenes, which are the history of these people. That is the umbilical cord that connects them to their own origin. And then you ask, if you go in Europe, name any place in Europe that they have any statue of any African or any people in the third world. They will either be satanic savages or not. And you see most of these countries that are really truly beginning to gain their independence, they are tearing down those statues and changing those names to reflect who they are. Because statues are meant for historical purpose and also to make sure that the indigenes connect themselves with their ancestors and know their history. And that is what the pride of a nation is. Imagine yourself, you come here, you see the statue of Shaka Zulu or the avenue of Shaka Zulu. What would you say? But you would think that it is normal for these people out there to have the statue of Valerie Giscard d'Estaing, the avenue of Valerie Giscard d'Estaing, and that is the arrogance of most Western nations. When they go to these people, they see these names, they claim that they own, they are superior. And it is exactly what is going on in New Zealand.
Well, in New Zealand, though, Fru, they do teach in all the schools both languages. So they do, and all the signs and everything around the country has dual language on everything.
That's what I'm saying. But who controls this? Who teaches? There are some history that will be suppressed. Typically in this country, there are certain history that will be suppressed. Because for people not to actually be proud of their own history, for the other groups not to know who they are. I mean, I don't need to go into that. But I mean, the thing is, what we are saying here, we are looking just about how we feel. What we feel is the accepted norm around the world. I was listening to all of you speak. What is the population of the U.S.? It's about 1/3 of the population of the whole world. But that 1/3 of the population of the whole world does not understand what goes on those other nations that have existed for thousands of years. But we seem to claim that we know too much. Our values are universal. Our own democracy is the same democracy that happens elsewhere. And that is what makes most people, most countries somehow resent that arrogance, because they use the Western democracy to destabilize the other countries, because you say within 4 or 5 years they should change their government. When they are not as established as ours, we will send our own monitors to go there and look it in our own way. When they want to talk, oh, we are there for monitoring, we are there for this. The Sahel has just demonstrated it. That's Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. People may not want to hear this news, and you have never seen it, heard it on CNN or on Western media. That ever since the French and most Western forces left that area, they don't talk about terrorism anymore. Can you explain that? That is what nobody will talk about success stories anywhere, because he who controls the media controls the narrative.
Okay, I got two comments from the audience. First one, as corrupt as America is, it pales in comparison to the corruption that takes place in Africa. Interesting point. People don't know about statues, like name them a building after someone. Few, if any, pay attention. Most have their eyes on their cell phone. Thank you for your comments.
So I do want to raise a couple of issues, Fru. I knew of a statue of Nelson Mandela in London, and I just looked up. I didn't know about this, but there are actually quite a few statues of Nelson Mandela in other places in Milan and other places in Europe. So I mean, I don't think it's even though your point about Europeans coming to places like Africa and New Zealand, I think we started with New Zealand, is true. I think today we recognize, the United States recognizes as well, some of the damage that we've done, maybe not completely, but in suppressing and pushing out other cultures. I think Canada has made progress in recognizing the damage that they've done to native cultures. We still have struggles. In the United States, we just took a mountain that had a native name on it and renamed it after an American president. So, I mean, we're still struggling with doing the right thing in these areas. But and I agree with you that it's a problem. But I would say we're making progress. We're doing the right things in the right ways, and maybe it's just too slow. I don't know.
Maybe in our own right ways. We say we are doing it, but sometimes we do it without consulting those that are on the ground. But we come there with an imposing, condescending attitude, because most of it is that it's about the bully mentality. We have the money, we have the guns. You have to do our own way or no way. I just pose that question. What is how is our own population? When you talk in Canada and all those places that are known, are places that the indigenous have been suppressed. By who? By the minority that have made themselves. Do we ever talk about that? And we selfishly, once we are talking about anything, we don't think that we are talking to the whole world. We seem to generalize our own ideas and thinking that some people will just swallow it. And when someone goes contrary to the normal thinking, we give them names, and names that people will not even want to say anything, or people say anything that can also open our own eyes, ears, and everything. They lose their job. They may even people really, we don't want to learn because, our own idea is universal and must be accepted by anybody. When anyone brings any other idea, that person risks his life. Or some people will say, if you don't like it here, go where you came from. As if we didn't come from anywhere. And those are the people who equally love this country more than some of us who speak.
Well,
I think that, aren't we getting into human nature? The nature of humans and how they are with tolerance and willing to accept other people. And, you look at history, this has happened with multiple nations doing things to other nations. And the thing is how far are we moving forward with human nature? Humans as a population in the world. Because if we look at history, unfortunately, this has been repeated numerous times. Whether it's Europe or it was Genghis Khan or even before that, whatever, populations were doing stuff. Egypt. So are we moving forward as humans to be more tolerant and understanding of other people, or are we still stuck?
Well, that's why I was impressed by what was going on in New Zealand, because it seemed to me, I could be wrong, it seemed to me that they were trying to accommodate each other and work this thing out.
Coming from the audience, can we change the name of the Riverhawks back to the Chiefs? It was the best logo in college sports.
Maybe we can. No.
Of course we can. We just don't. We don't have the gumption. Of course we can, but we don't have the guts to do that. It's all about don't offend anybody.
Well, I just want to bring up a little from personal experience on that comment you just had. In New York, I was near a city called Canandaigua, and the high school, Canandaigua High School, their logo was the Braves. And New York State made a blanket thing that you can't have anything like those kind of logos or mascots in if you want to get any state money. But the interesting thing is the city council met with the native tribes in the area and talked to them about that and wanted to, try to work things out and see if there was any issues with it. And the native tribe leaders didn't have any problem with the high school having that logo. It wasn't, in their opinion, derogatory, but the state made them change it because they just decided to make a blanket thing. We can't have any of these kind of mascot names or names at all. So that's the disappointing thing I saw, is that some of the native peoples, they weren't upset with some of the whatever the names were of certain things, and the people in those areas had things worked out, so there was no need to change anything. But because there was a decision made, there was no other options, and that's what was disappointing.
I do think we have to be careful that we're just changing names because it upsets one snowflake who can't handle it. I'm not sure that makes a lot of sense. In the extreme silly case to me is the University of Syracuse, which used to be known as the Orangemen, and they have now changed. I don't know if you know this, Michael. Mike, you're from that area as well. Their mascot is now a color, the orange. So they can't be the Orangemen anymore. They're now forced to be a color, which is a little silly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
that was too Protestant for somebody or something. I don't know. It's the most bizarre thing. Who were you offending? Were we offending Roman Catholics over that? I think that's a little strange.
I don't know, or maybe it could have been because they didn't like it because it said Orange Men. Maybe they wanted it
Orange People.
Yeah, right. It's because it was for men instead of including women, I guess. But I mean, this is the problem we've gone, is that every little thing, heaven forbid that anybody might be upset by something for whatever reason. I mean, we need to still focus on what's really important and what is, racial and anything else that's really important. But some of this other stuff is kind of silly, like you were saying, Bill. I mean, it's just, I don't understand it.
Comment from the audience, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me.
Okay.
Well, that's not the case.
Thank you, Fatso. It's one word too many. I tell my professional colleagues, sometimes we have one word too many. You look fantastic, Fatso. What did you have to add the last word for?
Okay, but talking about all this, over in England, in the British government, the Attorney General, Lord Hermer, has called the British Empire deeply racist and is fighting for reparations to all the nations that used to be in the British Empire. I mean, is this over the top? Has Britain offended everyone? What do we think?
I'd like to hear from Fru on that one.
You put me on the spot. All I can say is Britain was and still is one of the smallest countries. And then how did Britain rule the world? It was because of the media. In India, in Africa, they were listening to the radio and all those conquests, listening to the newspaper, watching movies, and those movies magnify and terrorize and also increase the might of the Western world. But now, as I say, he who controls the media controls the narrative. What happens now, anywhere, they don't listen to Western media anymore. There is a new type of news that is going on from Asia to the southern tip of Africa to the northern part of Siberia. People exchange live information, and before anything happens, the truth is out there, and people can easily, they just wait and see what VOA, BBC, CNN, and all whatnot, they will talk. So, and when they give their own version, this version doesn't match the reality. Al Jazeera is there. So now it begins gradually to crumble this imaginable and powerful institution that the media had created and fixated in the minds of people. So when you talk about that, Cliff, that shows that most of the whole world and most of Africa, they are using this same media and say, you know what, enough is enough. And even, it is this same media that, believe it or not, that has brought the BRICS country together, because they have seen that the global north is uniting together against the global south. But what else can do? So now people are reflecting that, look, they are using this, and making themselves a boys club. Be careful what is coming. And eventually maybe we'll get into it, you will talk about sanctions and then about tariffs. You see that tariffs is making new markets for these guys to create opportunity and seek new markets, which in the long run, the markets that they have created may come to haunt us, because they may not want to deal with us anymore.
Comment from the audience. Changing the orange bin probably has to do with Trump. Interesting angle. Thank you.
So
That's
Fru, knowing that you're going to have to run off to work here in 10 minutes, but I want to touch on Rwanda still going after, little Rwanda going after the big Democratic Republic of Congo, I mean, they took the town of Goma, the city of Goma, here 2 weeks ago, and this last week they took the town of, and I'll probably mispronounce this, Naibibiwi on Lake Kivu. So, Rwanda, must be getting outside support on this, right?
Well, Cliff, if you look at a state that is a country that is the population, New York State is about 10 times in terms of land mass, about 15 times bigger than Rwanda. And the population of Rwanda is 6 million. It's 14 million. And the state of, and the country of Zaire, which I showed here, is a country that covers the whole of Europe, bigger than the whole of Europe. And Rwanda is the country that 30 years ago went through that genocide. And that genocide, historically, it was caused by the so-called partition of Africa and the German and the Belgians' vicious and terrible rule. And Congo is cursed because they are the richest country in the whole world. Minerals that we use in the West, some of those minerals come only in Congo, they don't come elsewhere. If you look at that picture, how can in Congo, in the eastern part of Congo, there are airstrips that are landing and flying out of that area. And some people are using Rwanda as an exit and an entrance to steal those minerals. You would ask yourself, why is it that most African nations like Ghana also since independence, they have not bounced back like Rwanda after the genocide, which was also supported and stood aside by the Western world. I recall our President Clinton's words, never again. And they did everything to make Rwanda the little Kuwait of Africa while they were taking the resources. So to answer your question, they are the invisible hands that have always gone after the raw materials. But you wouldn't, people on this panel, I doubt if they would see it that way. They will always point a finger, but forgetting that when we point one finger, three are pointing back at us.
Comment from the audience. If I can try to draw the thing up there. It says, I don't know what's going on with here. Home run through for the last 4 years, we had the media telling us that President Biden was fit for office. Interesting angle. Thank you.
Well, first, I read somewhere that the Congo is losing $1 billion a year in minerals that are being exploited by Rwanda. $1 billion isn't a lot of money in Washington, D.C., but I would think it might be a lot of money in Eastern Congo.
Is it $1 billion in their money or our money?
Billion U.S. dollars.
But when you see, when the president of little Rwanda comes here, we give him a red carpet. Ask yourself, why are they giving him a red carpet, but they would not give South Africa a red carpet? Did you hear what our current president just talked about South Africa? Instead of taking our own problems here, we are saying that South Africa, the land issue there, when most white South Africans have spoken out again and tell our own president to stay in America and solve the problem in America, because they understand themselves and they are coexisting more than what they see across the Atlantic.
Yeah, there's a lot more going on with the U.S. and South Africa right now. The Secretary of State just said he will not go to the G20 summit in South Africa. I think it has to do as well, and I think what the Secretary of State has said is it has to do with the fact that South Africa is a party to this suit against Israel for war crimes, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what the secretary said.
Yeah, you're right.
It's tied up in a lot of things, and I think the U.S. needs to be very careful about this because, and we're not. I don't think we're being very careful because it matters what other people think. It matters what South Africa thinks about the U.S. We should not act as if we're the biggest in terms of the amount of power we have and we can do whatever we want. We should not act that way. And I think the U.S. is taking a lot of risks right now that make the rest of the world think we don't care what anybody thinks. I do want to go back to the original question about Lord Hermer and the British Empire. So Cliff, what you originally said was that he called the British Empire, quote, deeply racist. There's no doubt that the British Empire benefited immensely from the raising of the growing of sugarcane in the Caribbean with slave labor, was heavily involved with transferring slaves to the New World from the Old World. There's no, I mean, economically, this is not an arguable point. I would point out, however, the British Empire was one of the first nations to ban the slave trade. They did it far before the United States ever did, and then the United States kept holding slaves for a long time afterwards. You could argue that, well, part of that was the fact that the British actually domestically didn't benefit much from slavery. They had plenty of labor in England, and they didn't benefit domestically. Of course, they benefited from slavery and racist backgrounds, and as with all nations going around the world and colonizing other nations, they did a lot of bad things.
2 minutes
There's
to break.
no doubt about it.
2 minutes to break.
I'll stop.
Can I give Fru the last word because I know he has to leave?
Well, Cliff, thank you very much. But I just also wish that, we are blessed to live in this beautiful country. But the thing is, if you listen, you can, the person who can give you a good description about your problem, about yourself, is the person that you think that is your enemy. Those who love you, they can only flatter you to believe that you are supreme, you are faultless, but the enemy will give you another side of you which you don't like. So we should open our ears and respect other voices.
I think that's a good point. That we should be wanting to improve ourselves, and that means we need to be open to the things we're doing wrong. It's not easy, but
yes, it is.
So okay, thanks, Fru.
Okay, have a good week, everyone.
See you next Monday.
See you next Monday. Going to break. Thanks.
Are we starting a new topic now?
We are.
Right. I brought up the 14th Amendment on my computer. I'll read it if you want. I take issue with your notes, but...
Okay.
Hey, look, it's all that.
All right.
You're back.
Welcome back to the show. Good morning. It's City Life Show. I'm Cliff Krieger, your host. Eileen Delrossi is here. How are you, Eileen? Maybe Eileen's not here.
She's texted me, so I gotta read her text.
All right, and we have Bill Johnson from UMass Lowell, and we have Mike Smith down in Florida. What's the temperature down there, Mike?
I think it's like 65, 66 right now. Supposed to go up 75 today, but it was 80 yesterday. Once the sun comes out, it warms up even more.
Who's going to warm up here from 18 to 32?
Okay.
With roaring applause, actually, because
It should be good weather. We're getting a little feedback, are we?
Oh yeah, I think that's mine. I'm sorry. I'm gonna put it on mute until I leave.
Okay.
So, we have a deficit.
We've taken a look at a couple of issues. I wanted to talk about birthright citizenship, but before I did, wanted to have a quick review. Was everyone happy with the Super Bowl outcome?
I thought it was tasty.
Okay.
Well, Kathy and I were wearing our Bills shirt. We were at a party, about 10 of us, to watch it. We were wearing it in protest of some of the calls in that game. So we were not disappointed that Kansas City got beat. We just didn't expect them to get beat that bad. But again, I always say defense wins championships, and the Eagles definitely had a much better defense.
It was a good game. I enjoyed every minute. We would cheer. I was for the Eagles, and so was my wife and my favorite sister-in-law. So they don't know anything about football. They just know the Eagles had to win. So it was a good game. I liked it.
There was a lot of comments in our group about the halftime show, and because
that stunk.
Well, let me give you a little background because Kathy looked it up while the show was going on. Jay-Z Entertainment, Jay-Z and his entertainment company have been the ones scheduling the halftime shows for the last 5 years. They're in contract with the NFL. So he gets to decide which entertainer you want to have at the halftime for the Super Bowl. So that if you want to blame anybody, if you're not happy with the halftime shows, contact Jay-Z. So he's the one, his company is the one behind choosing the halftime entertainers.
Comment from the audience. Fru's 1,000% correct. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. If you want to comment, just send a text to that phone number there. Thanks.
Bill, you got a thought on the game?
Until Mike said who won, I didn't know. That's the truth. I was going to look it up on my computer. Okay.
So it was interesting with all the entertainment in that. I do have to say it seems like all the entertainment, because of New Orleans, was targeted for one particular group for all the entertainment, which I thought was a little bit disappointing. Every single entertainment there was all from blacks. And I think that when you got 120 million people watching the show, you should have a little bit more variety. Every single entertainment was all the bands, every singer, every group, and even the people in the entertainment groups, every single one was black. And that's not diversity as far as I'm concerned, when you got 120 million people watching the entertainment. And that's why I brought up about Jay-Z making the decisions on the entertainment. I just think that talking about diversity, it should be a little bit more for the whole audience that's watching it.
I cut the show.
The halftime entertainment, I mean, multiple people were looking up on Facebook, on different things. They were not happy because you could not. The only reason we could understand the halftime entertainment is because we had the subtitles on. And even then it was hard to, what he was saying. I mean, that does not, this is one of the biggest entertainment events that happen in the world, and it should be where people, most people can understand it. And we couldn't even keep up with it watching the subtitle.
Keeping a comment from the audience, the halftime shows are always awful. Even the halftime shows during Thanksgiving and Xmas are dreadful. That's from Jay. If you want to sign your text, you can. So you can put J, you can put L. I don't know who J is, so it doesn't make no difference. If you want to sign your text, you can. You don't have to. Thanks.
One of the things I took from the show was I get the Boston Globe email every day, and they have highlight three sports items, and showing that their lordships down in Boston still haven't gotten over Ben Franklin going to Philadelphia. They had three sports items. The Super Bowl was number 3. I thought that was a little weird. So we're going to talk about.
You mean that was too high? The rating was too high. It should have been lower than 3. Is that what you mean, Cliff?
No. I thought it should have been number 1. It was the Super Bowl.
Well, I don't know what the other 2 was. Was it the Manitoba Curling Championship and the?
No, they were both local Boston sports having to do with hockey.
Yeah, we're not even to Stanley Cup time yet. So I tend to agree with you. Unless it was the Manitoba Curling Club Championship, I agree with you.
Well, they haven't even finished the hockey season yet. Not even close to it. I mean, the Stanley Cup now is played in June. So we've still got another 4 months, before we're going to get to that.
Well, they were talking about the bean pot, though.
2 comments from the audience. At least no one was kneeling during the national anthem. I think NFL decided that you can't do that anymore. What a weird spot we are all put in. Everyone hates Philly because they got the worst fans in sports, yet everyone was rooting for them to win. My friends, I have a lot of good friends in Philadelphia. I don't feel any negativity towards them. Good day to celebrate.
There were comments from our group about the Star Spangled Banner because he was kind of just changing it a little bit, and there was comments from people saying, why can't they just sing it the way it is, instead of having to add all this other stuff into it. And I was disappointed. I mean, the Star Spangled Banner is something that Super Bowl you look forward to, and they sang America the Beautiful. The singers just weren't there. We had to turn the volume up so high because you could, with all the technical stuff, we could hardly hear them. I think they could have gotten singers with a little bit stronger voices because it was. I was a little disappointed in that entertainment. That they could have had much better voices for that.
Mike, is the Super Bowl the only game we actually hear the national anthem anymore? They don't play it at regular games on TV.
That's not correct. Like Dallas and stuff. I know I saw during the playoffs and even before that, they had the national anthem.
I didn't see the Patriots play it at all. I missed it.
For a while, they weren't showing it on TV. They did it, but they didn't show it at the games. They just showed the players coming out. So they've started going back to that, showing it at the pregame.
Well, again,
you guys saw it at hockey games and basketball games in Canada. There was booing during the U.S. national anthem. You guys saw this?
No.
Yeah. So after Trump announced the 25% tariff on goods from Canada, there was a hockey game, and I think the Raptors in Toronto were booing during the American national anthem. And there was a hockey game. I'm not sure which one it was, but I saw a video of it, of booing during the U.S. national anthem. We're popular among Canadians.
You'd expect better from the 51st state.
Well,
that'll probably get booing too, Cliff, if you don't watch it with that.
I'd like to give my take on that. Trump, whether you like him or not, is a master negotiator on doing one thing while really wanting something else. I think that what he did is this stuff with the tariffs and all the other stuff is the reason why he was doing that is he really wanted both Mexico and the EU and Canada to do a better job on the borders for security. So if you read into the stories, the real stories on this, the real negotiations were getting Canada and Mexico to beef up their border security for illegal people coming in the country. So it gets the attention of the politicians in Canada or Mexico when you say you're going to put a 25% tariff on. So as soon as they agreed to beef up their security, that's when they put the pause on it to talk about it for the next 30 or 90 days. I don't know exactly how many days it was. So that was paused. So the real goal, I think, was getting better border security. I don't anticipate that after 30 days is done, you're going to see 25% tariffs on Canada.
I didn't know we had a border security problem with the Canadian border. Is that a true thing?
Yes, they've had problems with people coming through Canada now for illegals coming in. Yep. So obviously everybody sees it more from coming up from Mexico, but people are traveling to Canada. Canada is a little bit more lax on people coming into their country from other countries. So people were coming in, and then they were coming in illegally across the border.
That border is impossible to defend. That's a harder border to defend than the southern border.
Yeah, I understand that too.
It's a much bigger border. I mean, it's not even close.
Oh yeah. But I think what was happening, people were coming into, say, into Ontario and that Toronto, and then they'd be coming across the borders into the U.S. So, it's they wanted it in the main population areas where people were coming through to put better security in. So that's it. I mean, when I was looking at it, because Trump does a lot of ridiculous stuff. I'm not going to deny that. He does a lot of ridiculous stuff. But as far as negotiating with the tariffs, it got the attention right away of the politicians in Canada. And then they sat down and really talked more about border security.
So, birthright citizenship. I'm in favor of birthright citizenship. I like it. To me, it's very American. But I'm not sure that Trump is wrong here. But Bill's got a different view.
Well, the 14th Amendment, and I just brought it up on my computer. I'll read what it says. It says, the first sentence of it says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. The text is clear. It is unambiguous. The United States Constitution says if you're born in the U.S., you are a U.S. citizen. There's no ambiguity here. So for Trump to say anything other than this, he's wrong, and he's saying something against the Constitution. It's unconstitutional what he's proposing. The only way to change that, of course it can be changed. There needs to be a constitutional amendment. It has to go through and be ratified by Congress and the Senate, and then go through 3/4 of the states. It's not hard to change, but it will take some time, and it should be changed if people want to change it.
Okay, Professor, I'm going to read these two texts, and I got a question for you. Two texts. It says, it's a shame that a Border Patrol officer was gunned down in northern Vermont. Very true. Meatloaf at the MLB All-Star Game has the best rendition of the national anthem. I think Lady Gaga did the best.
What about Whitney Houston?
That was another beautiful one. You're right. Bill, on the birthright citizenship, when was that law passed?
It's not a law. It's a constitutional amendment.
Thank you for the correction. Let me just ask the question again. On talk radio, some of the talk radio artists are saying that, I'll put me up so you guys can sip your brew. Some of the talk show people are saying it's simply so black people, their kids were automatically citizens. It goes back to the Civil War.
Yeah, it was adopted after the Civil War. That's correct.
It was before jet planes, but certainly while we had ships, I think times have changed, but there's no way Trump is going to turn this around.
Well, I don't think Trump loses either way on this, because he's bringing it up. So the people who want it changed, even if it goes to the Supreme Court for whatever reason, if he even makes it there, he can't lose with the groups that support him. So again, It's all about optics. It's interesting though, because I read up on this, and the guy from Michigan, the senator that was involved with this, it was more for what John's saying, because of the slaves and that they didn't have citizenship, weren't even considered human, which is really bad. Is when he wrote this, he was referring to the case, that people here, they didn't have the same issues we've got now with the illegals coming in the country. And there was some ambiguity when he was writing this up for it. And then the case that they decided in 1898, the Supreme Court, which they decided on this, what had to do with a Chinese son whose parents lived in the United States who legally lived here, that they were already legal residents of the country. So I think it's interesting that this is being brought up. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of it, because with the amount of illegals that came in the country, especially if they came here and then had kids, it's a touchy subject for a lot of people. But on the other hand, there's groups saying, well, if you had a kid here, you can't deport the parents or the kid if they came here illegally. And from what I'm seeing, they're saying, yeah, they can. The kid still has U.S. citizenship, but they got to go back with their parents. But it's going to be quite interesting, because this is probably going to go up to the Supreme Court, and we'll see what they decide. If they decide any change, it'll be very narrow, but it'll be interesting.
I guess I'm not sure what the debate is. The text is clear. If you're born here, you're a citizen. I don't know if people like it or don't like it, but the text is not ambiguous. It doesn't have to go to court.
But those short little words that, where the short little words, and I'm trying to remember them exactly.
All persons born are citizens of the United States.
Before that, read the additional one.
Okay, I'll read the first sentence says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside.
Okay, so when people come in this country illegally, are they subject to the jurisdiction of the United States?
So the parents, you would argue, and this is a question for law, the parents may or may not be subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And that's a question for a court, I agree. But when I was born, I didn't have a choice to be subject or not be subject. I was just being born. So I was a citizen because I was born here. And that's true of everyone who's born here. I agree that the issue of the parents is a different issue. But a person born here can't be not subject to the jurisdiction thereof. They're born here.
Bill, when you were born,
it is, because if that person, if the people came here illegally, was that person born? Are they illegally here too? And are they subject to the jurisdiction? I'm not saying one way or the other, but that's the big debate now. And that's why I think it's going to come to the Supreme Court to clear that up.
Well, I think it is clear. I think people want it to be a big debate, but I don't think there is a big debate.
If it ends up getting to the Supreme Court, obviously there is some issues there.
As you mentioned, there was this very clear case in 1898 or early 20th century, late 19th century, of a man whose parents were here from China, and this man was tried to deny his citizen rights, and it went through the courts. And the court said, no, you were born in the United States. You're a U.S. citizen, unambiguously.
Well, because he had left the country and went to come back in, they were denying him entry.
Right.
And so that's not exact. He left the country and was here legally, and that had to do a lot with the racism with Chinese at the time.
hey, look,
So
guys,
that's why.
right now, Eileen's on her way to work. It's all of a sudden she's going to say goodbye. So, Eileen, got anything on your mind you want to put out there? You've been driving there ferociously on your way to work. You got any comments?
No, interesting listening. I mean, I think a lot of what Trump is trying to do is not in our Constitution or not right now, but I think he's coming in hot because of all of the mishandling of funds and so forth. I sent John some slides about the mishandling of funds. So I think he's coming in and going over the top instead of really trying to make everybody happy. I don't know. That's my thought.
Oh, I thought he was trying to make people happy.
He's definitely not trying to make people happy, Cliff.
He's definitely going over the top, too.
He's had his campaign pledges. But back to birthright citizenship for a second. It's interesting that Native Americans did not get birthright citizenship until about 1915. And we had a case last year where a 50, 60-some-year-old person with a U.S. passport went to renew it and was denied because they said, well, when you were born here, your parents were
Diplomats.
Yeah.
They were from Iran.
So here's a guy who had been traveling on a U.S. passport for a couple of decades, and all of a sudden they said, oh, no, you're not really a U.S. citizen because you weren't subject to the jurisdiction of the United States.
So that's always been an exception, though.
Yeah, there is exceptions for that.
That's always been an exception, that if you're in the United States because your parents are diplomats, you're not granted birthright citizenship. That's an exception. That's true.
I feel sorry for the guy.
Well, yeah, actually, I remember this case very well. He was in his 60s. His son was getting married in the not the Virgin Islands, somewhere in the Caribbean, and he needed to renew his passport. And when he did, they revoked it and revoked his citizenship, even though he'd been paying into Social Security. And so he went to his congressman, and they're like, well, we can fix it, but you got to get a new Social Security number, which would mean he would forfeit all the money he's paid in. This man was in his late 60s, I think. And you know, to say, well, you're an Iranian citizen because your parents were Iranian. He's lived his entire life in the United States. He doesn't speak Persian. It was a particularly sad case. I hope it got straightened out and the U.S. did the right thing, because they basically were going to retroactively cancel his citizenship because of a mistake the United States made. The mistake was clear at the time, right? It was clear. He shouldn't have gotten citizenship. But once you give citizenship, you can't really retroactively cancel it.
Well, he wouldn't. I understand that, but as far as Social Security, they didn't cancel out his current Social Security number, if I understand right. So he's still entitled to that, because Kathy lived and worked in the United States when she was married for 25 years, and she has both a Canadian Social Security number and a U.S. Social Security number, so she gets American Social Security for the year she paid into it.
Right. I think the issue was they wanted to reissue him a new Social Security number, and if they did that, then he would lose the other one, because you can't have two.
Right.
Anyway, I don't know what the outcome of that was, but Cliff, I remember that case very, very clearly. That was, the U.S. government made a mistake in 1962 or whenever this guy was born, and he had medical practice. He went to medical school here, and it was a bad case.
Yeah, heaven forbid the U.S. government admits they make a mistake. So.
Okay, so. It's 7:25. We got to get to Doge. So for the last 3 weeks, the Democrats have screamed about how an unelected multi-billionaire has gained access to the levers of federal spending. Not only that, a lot of people have implied that Elon Musk is a foreigner, even though he's a U.S. citizen, because he was born in South Africa.
But before we get too far down the road, I gotta issue here brought up towards Bill, and it says, Bill, do parents get to stay because the kid was born here, or do we deport the parents and the kid raises itself? Being gender neutral here, the kid is an it.
So I mean, that's a fair question. I'm not an expert in the law on this, so I will give you that statement. I think if the parents are not here legally and they can be deported, then the government can deport them, and the child, I would assume, would go with the parents.
So,
when the child's old, let me just finish, Mike, and then I'll let you go. When the child's old enough, the child at 18 can move here and sponsor his parents and go through the same process that, say, Melania Trump did with her parents, right? So I think that's the way the process is supposed to work, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, Tom Homan was interviewed and asked this specific question, as I saw the interview. And he said, because they asked that, if the parents are here illegally and the kid is here, what would happen? And he says there's nothing stopping us from deporting the whole family, and then the kid can come back, like you said.
Yeah,
so,
at 18.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's been asked, and the current, with Tom Homan's position, he says there's nothing stopping us from deporting the whole family. They're not denying the kid citizenship, but, got to come back when he's old enough or apply to come back in.
Back when I was young, we referred to those as anchor babies. And for a while, there was a big thing of Russian women coming to Florida to have their babies so that they could then box stop that into staying in the United States.
Speaking of Doge, Cliff, a comment from the audience. It's comical that people who are in government for decades are complaining about Doge. Drain the swamp. Back to you, Cliff.
Okay, so I think Doge is a good thing. I think looking at how we're doing the spending, some of the things coming out of USAID, like paying for concrete for Hamas in Gaza and buying condoms for the Taliban in Afghanistan, paying for atheism in Nepal, or LGBT kind of activities in other countries. I'm not sure that's where I want my taxpayer money going.
Well, I had a text earlier this morning. What country taxes its people and sends their money to the USA?
Yeah. Well, let's remember one thing. They're exposing all this misspending, but the Congress still has to say we're not going to pay that money anymore. So they don't have any authority to just cut the spending. They don't have that. The executive branch or Congress has to make those decisions. So let's not lose sight of that. Their job is to find out where we can cut expenses, and then it's up to Congress or the executive branch to decide if they want to do that or not. So, it's that people lose sight of that.
Hey, just on a side note, today, Lowell Senior Center, they're having chicken a la king. So head over there around 10:30. Give the gal at the door, her name is Tara, give her your $2 or your $2.50, and 11 o'clock, the feed bag comes out, chicken a la king. That's today's feast at the Lowell Senior Center. Lowell Senior Center is the only place I know of, senior center-wise, that has lunch 7 days a week. Congratulations. Nice job. Back to you, Cliff.
Bill.
So I think Mike raises a good point. I mean, I read from the Constitution before. I won't read Article 1 of the Constitution, but it's very clear that Congress has the ability to spend money, and if Congress decides to spend money, the executive branch does not have the right to say, no, you can't send condoms to Africa if you want, or you can't. The executive branch does not have that ability. Of course, they have the ability to review it and say, I don't think this is a good idea, or raise a stink about it. I think my biggest concern is the legality. First of all, the constitutionality, but also the legality of retroactively canceling contracts that the government has with companies and other entities. I think is problematic. I think it creates a lot of uncertainty. I have no problem with reviewing governments and looking for more efficient ways to do things. I think we should do that. And I would certainly never say there's no waste in the government. But I think we have to be very careful if one political group is saying, well, that's waste. Well, another political group will point to something else and say, but that's waste. And we shouldn't be making these decisions based on politics. We should be making them in an objective way. And I'm not sure we're doing that. So I'm a little concerned about, also another thing I'm a little concerned about is, DOGE is not a department. It's not co-equal with, say, the Department of Education or the Department of State. The leaders of this organization are not approved by the Senate. They were not elected. I think we need to be very careful here. Of course, the president can hire whatever advisors he wants, but we need to be careful on how we do this moving forward. Like I said, I'm open to change and evaluating things, but we should do things in a constitutional and legal way.
The requirement that the executive branch spend the money that Congress has appropriated only got incorporated into law in about 1972. The Democrats were unhappy with Richard Nixon sequestering money. So that of itself doesn't appear to be in the Constitution, although I'm sure that if I was a Supreme Court justice, I could imply it.
Well, Article 1 does give power to tax and allocate monies to Congress, not to the president.
What is
so I would say it's in the Constitution. But you're also right, there was a law, I thought it was 74, but I can look up the law.
Hey, look, you guys can stick it. What is sequestering money, Cliff? Would you tell me what that means, sequestering money?
Yeah, that's when the executive branch says Congress appropriated $1 billion for various things, but one of them we don't think we should spend it on, and therefore they say the money isn't going to be spent.
And that's not legal today?
That's not legal today.
Understood, thank you.
I'm waiting to see what's going to come out of this with that they had that due date for people if they wanted to take a buyout who were federal employees. Because the latest numbers I saw, 40,000 people were taking it. And it'll be interesting to see how that works out. I mean, basically, that's just like when companies do downsizings. That's what I equate it with. They basically came in and said, we're going to downsize, we're planning on, by doing this, we're planning on downsizing the government. So we'll give you a payout to leave now. Otherwise, when we downsize, you may not get hardly anything.
Interesting comment from the audience. If President Trump lost, we would never have known about where the money goes. Keep looking under those rocks for the slugs in government. That's from Jay. Good point.
The downsizing government and buyouts is not a new thing. My first time in the Pentagon, my boss and his secretary cross-filed grievances against each other, and the personnel people took her out of his front office and assigned her to me. And so I made her an assistant to someone. And about 3 months later, her boss came to me and said she would be gone by the afternoon because they'd come out and say, we're doing a buyout if you want to sign up. And poof, she was a dot.
So my biggest concern about this buyout is Congress only has spending guaranteed through March. So what happens if Congress in April says, we're not paying for that? Because, of course, as I mentioned, the president doesn't have the ability to do that. I think there's a possibility that Congress literally could say, yeah, we're not going to pay those people through September, which was the offer made by the executive branch. I think
you're wrong.
You know, in cases where there's buyouts, you have to be able to pay for them.
Bill, it's a
No, I
contract.
saw the
Bill, it's a
article,
contract
Bill.
with the
I'm
government.
familiar with that, and I am aware of that. So that'll be quite interesting to see how that plays out. Yep, yeah, I'm aware of that.
That's
Yeah, I
not
don't know
going to
if it's
happen,
interesting.
boys. Not going to happen. It's a contract with the government. It's like saying, you know what? Congress might not fund pensions next year for federal employees. We all know that's not going to happen. It's a contract with the government. The government's not going away. The government is all about self-preservation. It's not here to help you. It's there to help the government survive.
Well, there's two parts of the budget, and my brain has now gone blank on the names, but part of the budget is non-discretional and part is discretional. And I think they've got it set up so the non-discretional, like Social Security, just goes on and on. And the discretional, like Department of Education, Department of Defense, doesn't. Eileen, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say maybe this is a good time, John, if you could bring up those slides that I sent you, if you can do them like side by side, actually. So the first one is one that Elon Musk had tweeted out a few days ago about how much the rises from 2019 to currently in order to, and the other side is in reference to how much they're questioning fraud and waste in all the different departments. And I mean, the numbers are pretty significant, and I think you probably all heard them. I mean, it's disturbing because there's been no checks and balances when it comes to our funding, and we keep just writing blank checks and saying, here's more money, and we're in major debt.
Eileen, the numbers are quite bluntly a little too small to put up on the screen, so you got some good examples here, but graphically I can blow them up. But once I blow them up, it doesn't say what they're for. That's what happens to them. They don't get. I can read them, but a lot of homework. Like Social Security is the top one, and it says outlays. I don't know what that means, and it's a little puzzling to look at. Good stuff, but a little puzzling to look at.
Outlays is money that's spent.
Okay, can you see this stuff, Cliff?
I can't read it.
Okay.
No, it's probably too small.
An outlay is when your wife goes to the grocery store and buys food.
So,
And then brings it home and cooks it for you.
so I'm not following this, but thanks, Eileen.
Maybe the other slide will come up better. I sent you another one.
That's about some baby's birthday in the paper. It's about Madeline Ferreira.
No. Maybe I didn't send it to you,
Okay.
and I thought I did. It's the white one, actually. It says federal government waste, fraud, abuse.
All right, let me see. I got
It
another
should be
one. I
under
can't read
that
it.
one.
I'll see if I can blow it up. Hang on a second, and I'll see what we got.
Anyway, the argument about Doge not being constitutional. All right, John, I'm watching you blow this up.
Yeah, it gets distorted, Eileen. Federal government waste, fraud, abuse, and I'd like a clearer shot of this, but I'm glad stuff is getting discovered. I have no problem with an audit. The government has no trouble coming into a company and auditing them. The government needs a forensic audit, and while I have your attention, I'm going to read this text. Where is Massachusetts Elon Musk to uncover the waste, fraud, and abuse? Who's the gal who's trying to sue the state and audit them? DeZoglio. She's our champion, but they're not going to let her go forward. Back to you guys. Thank you.
So I want to push back a little on something Eileen said, which is that there have been no checks and balances. We have the Government Accountability Office. We have Congress that's allocating this money. We have an Inspector General, although I would point out Trump just eliminated many of the Inspectors General and fired them from various organizations. So we had these checks and balances. If Congress is allocating money to places we don't want as citizens, we need to hold Congress accountable. Elon Musk said what USAID was doing, he called it a criminal organization. I think if that's the case, then we need to prosecute them. If that's really the case, that they're breaking the law, we should hold criminals accountable, not forgive them or fire them.
Well, Bill, you live in an environment that turns like the Queen Mary, and Trump wants to turn at light speed. To change something in government, it moves at what I call the speed of government. And once I say, oh, it's coming at the speed of government, people chuckle, which means it ain't. Well, this Friday at noontime, the city of Lowell is closed until Tuesday, 10 a.m. They'll all be in work Tuesday at 8, but don't bother them until 10. And that's what government is. The government is for self-preservation. It's not here to help commoners like me and you.
I'd like to push back on Bill on a subject. He used the term Government Accountability Office.
That's what it's called.
That
It's
is
the GAO.
a fraud on the people of the United States. Back when I was young, it was the Government Accounting Office. And the U.S. Congress was the Government Accountability Office. But the U.S. Congress has just sort of thrown its hands up and passed this responsibility over to some bureaucrats on Capitol Hill. And I think that that is wrong. Fundamentally wrong. And that's just my personal view. I hope I didn't come across too strong there.
Well, I tend to agree with Bill as Congress still approves all this. So the buck stops with them, so to speak, because they're the ones who are passing these budgets and approving all this. So, it works this way, well, I'll vote for this if you give me this, and I'll vote for it if you give me this. So that's how all these bills get all this different items put in there. Because what's the job of a politician? To get reelected. Right, to stay in office. So they've got to, especially Congress, that's why I think the term should be changed from 2 years to 4 years at least, is that as soon as they get elected, they're almost running again. And in order to get reelected, they got to show the people they did something for them. So they can say, well, I got you this bridge, or I got you this school renovated, or whatever. So it's an endless cycle that, they're not motivated to make the government more efficient and spending less money. So that's the real question. That's the real problem.
Comment from the audience. I think Congress should be charged with the RICO Act. They perform like criminal enterprise. Interesting. Well, who was not surprised that we bought so many condoms for people out over the Middle East? Who was surprised at this?
I think it was the condom program, I think, was under George. If it's the program I'm thinking of, it was under George W. Bush.
I don't care who was under. Who was not surprised by this?
It was intended to reduce the problem of AIDS in Africa. And I think it's been a successful program. Now, whether or not we should be spending money on it is a different issue. But I think it has been successful in reducing AIDS in Africa, which I think is a noble goal.
Well, I got to throw in on this because Fru is always talking about how these cultures and their countries are also, if they were left alone, they could manage things on their own. So why can't they manage their own people and give them condoms and pay for it? So it's not our job, and whether you agree with Trump or not, his job is to take care of the people in the United States first. So, and whether it's Trump or any other president, that should be their goal. We should be taking care of our citizens. our people, legal residents and citizens first. And then if we can help other people, that's great too. But we got so many people, especially with mental health issues and homelessness, that we're not taking care of. And, everybody acts like, Trump does a lot of things and that are stupid.
Hey, Cliff.
So I'll agree with that. But the goal, though, to make America the most important thing for its citizens, I think that's a good goal. I don't know where we lost that, but we should be taking care of our own people first.
Cliff, how are we making out with getting Congresswoman Lori Trahan on the program? Did you go down to her office? Did you get any feedback?
No, none.
So would you tell the audience what you did?
Yeah, I drove down to the office. I talked to a lady. I found a parking space. I found the office. It took a while to find the office on John Street. I found a parking space. I went in, was told that I was in the wrong office, and they headed me down to the office. Some young lady came to the door. I explained.
Was the door locked?
Yeah.
A lot of companies
the bell
do that.
was not obvious. Where the button for the bell was, I mistook for a keypad or a ID card. But anyway, she was very nice. I gave, what? Go ahead, Eileen.
I was going to say, they have a secret password when they see your car roll up.
Yeah.
The bald eagle is here. Secure. Hide the buttons.
Comment from the audience. I
gave her my card and said that I would be happy for her to come on or Zoom on Friday, or for her to send a surrogate. I said, or I could push the topic off until Monday and we could do it then. But I've heard nothing back.
Thank you, Cliff. A comment from the audience. I thought it was aid for Africa, not AIDS in Africa.
Funny. Anyway, back to Doge. People are claiming it's all illegitimate, but I think that President Barack Obama opened the door for this. When Obamacare came out and the website crashed, President Obama created the U.S. Digital Service, and they waived a lot of the civil service requirements so they could hire some
friends,
digital geniuses. Trump continued the organization, except he changed the head from a political appointee to a civil servant. Then President Biden changed it back to a political appointee. So there was the door for Trump to bring on all those digital gnomes to check through all the data and find out what's going on.
Before we run out of time, I'm going to go around the table here and ask, do you think the audit by Doge is a good idea or a bad idea? Starting off with Eileen Delrossi. Good idea or bad idea?
Good idea.
Okay. Bill?
They're not doing an audit.
No.
I think what they're doing is wrong. We have an Office of Inspector General.
Bad idea. Okay, I got you. Bad idea.
The Government Accountability Office. So
I got you.
No, we had a program for that.
I got you. A bad idea. Mike, so something that Trump's doing, I don't know how to label it, but looking into how we're spending money, a good idea or a bad idea, Mike?
I don't see a problem with people knowing where their money is going.
You got 2 answers.
Well, but that's a different answer. I don't have a problem with that either, right? What Doge is doing is not looking at where people's money is going. They're just cutting things for the sake of cutting things.
Okay, Cliff, good idea or bad idea?
Bill,
hey, it's Cliff's turn.
Wait a minute, let me finish with Bill here. It's incorrect. They don't have the power to cut anything. All they can do is recommend this is where money should not be spent.
The president has put on hold funding for states, and states are suing the president to release this money. It's gone to court. There's over 22 or 24 states that sued.
If you want, I can use the mute button.
Done.
I want to.
Ronald Reagan did it to get the drinking age rate.
I'm going to shut off the audio. Cliff, give us your answer.
Don't shut off the audio. Answer the question. What is your answer to the question?
It's a great idea. I love it.
All right. I think it's brilliant.
Turning the page.
Let me add another derivative comments, which I think is worth saying, which is we could actually get a benefit out of it, but I think it's a very disruptive thing to do. At this point, I don't think it's good.
Well, I'm going to give you the example of what Ronald Reagan did. He wanted the drinking age raised to 21. So what he did is states are saying, no, you can't do that. We're not going to do it. You know what he did? He cut off their highway federal funding. And they didn't take him to court for that. He just stopped it. So this is not a new thing that's being done. It's been done by previous presidents.
But I would argue that was an overreach of federal power.
Respectfully, Bill, this is from a comment from the audience. Respectfully, Bill, you're doing your best word salad. That's from Jay. It makes me smile. I like that word salad comment.
So there was a snarky comment out there in the internet. Larry Schweikert texted, U.S. aid is going to become the biggest scandal in U.S. history ahead of Teapot Dome or the Tweed Ring. It will become so monstrously huge that within a year the hoax news media will admit it and then try to blame it on Donald Trump. So
I'm not sure I understand the point that the cancellation of U.S. aid, the firing of these people will become I'm not sure I understand.
The way the money was being spent in U.S. aid will become a scandal.
Oh.
I think that's going to happen, Cliff. I think you're right. Because who gets fired? When everything gets all screwed up, no matter what happens, we forgot to plow the snow, the roof's leaking in the federal building, somebody fell down the stairs, whatever goes wrong, nobody gets fired. In small companies, people get fired. You can screw up wicked badly working for the government, and you know what? Your check's coming electronically every single week. You're going home at noontime on Friday, and you don't have to come back until Tuesday, no matter how bad of a job you do. And this is the government we all live in today. Would anybody contradict that?
I will contradict it.
Okay.
I think the majority of civil servants are hardworking Americans. They're doing their job. They're doing what they're told.
And how many,
I think the people you're describing, of course, exist.
Now, I'm told it's 80-20 in the government. 20% of the people are goofing off. So should we keep paying those 20% of the people? Because whether I talk to somebody who works for the state, feds, or local government, if I finish my work early, my boss brings me Sally's work. Sally is the boss's girlfriend. And Sally's busy doing her nails. So because I finished up early, I get Sally's work. So what I do is slow down my process. I don't want Sally's work. That goes on, and does that not go on, Bill?
I don't think you're right. And I'm going to depend on Bill to give me the term for this. Some Italian guy, I can't remember, begins with an F, I think. But 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Everywhere. It's that way with fighter pilots. 20% of the fighter pilots get 80% of the air-to-air kills.
This is the Pareto principle.
Pareto, yes. Thank you.
So that means 20% of the people are doing the work, or 80% of the people are doing the work?
20% of the people do 80% of the work. The other 80% do 20% of the work.
Almost every dime Congress spends is a scandal. Comment from the audience.
So with that comment, I would say you guys need to elect different congressmen. Why are you electing the same people? Go find someone else who doesn't do that.
You're right. You're absolutely correct. So I can tell you from a personal story, my uncle worked for the U.S. printing office, and he was on the Senate Finance Committee and did all the proofreading. His boss was an appointed position where he was. He said his boss was lucky if he saw him, showed up once a week. He'd be running his old side business and whatever. So he was collecting a big salary because he was an appointee, but he wasn't coming in to manage the office and do all the stuff he's supposed to do. Because he had somebody like my uncle who was doing 80% of the work, for them. So it's, I know that personally can happen.
So, looking at the overreach, a federal judge, Paul Engelmayer, has unilaterally forbidden all of Trump's political appointees, including Treasury Secretaries Scott Bessent, from accessing Treasury Department data. So,
Accessing. They can assess it, but they can't access it.
Accessing. All right. You're
Well,
right.
How are they going to assess it if they can't see it?
No.
No, I think that the point is that Doge wanted access to Cliff's Social Security information and where his check gets deposited, and they want to know where my IRS check got sent and things about my bank account. I'm not really comfortable with an unapproved, a non-Senate approved appointee doing that kind of thing.
Tomorrow City Life,
the
we
judge
have...
said the Treasury
excuse me,
Secretary, Scott Bessent,
I'm going to do this whether you like it or
was
not.
not authorized
Yes, I'm going to do this like it or
to see
not.
the data.
Okay, here we go now. I've talked over you 5 times, Cliff. So you're going to have to repeat yourself, please. Tomorrow City Life. Attorney Sandra Meneses is coming. Bob Hoey's going to be here. Ned Tommy's going to be here. And Tom Bommel. Back over to you, Cliff. Time is short.
All right. So the judge has ruled the Secretary of the Treasury cannot have access to Treasury Department data. I think that's a little weird.
I think the Secretary of the Treasury has access to it. There are people in the Treasury that have access to this.
But not the Secretary.
Okay, that's new. My understanding was that restraining order was to prevent Doge and other Doge people working with Doge from having access to it. The Treasury, of course, needs access to send me my tax return and to send people their Social Security checks, right? So Treasury still has access to it. They have to.
I think you're right, Bill, on that. I think what I read on that. Yeah.
Mike, did you get your Social Security check?
I don't get it to the 3rd Wednesday of the month, so.
Okay.
Comment
Well,
from
let
the
us know
audience.
if you don't get it.
Government, efficient government, that's a joke of the day. And Mike, everybody loves your shirt.
So the person that started this lawsuit that the judge ruled on without giving the president a chance to present his side.
40 seconds.
The person who started this was New York Attorney General Latifah James.
Of course.
I figured she was afraid she wasn't going to be getting the government money anymore.
Well, the government has guaranteed support for Medicaid and other programs, and there are 22 or 24 states that are suing to make sure they get the money the federal government has promised them.
Well, I'm not sure that they need to sue, but we'll see how this develops. And,
last comment of the day is gullible is no way to go through life, Bill. Stop believing everything they tell you. Think for yourself and rely on common sense. Hey, guys, thanks for getting up extra early. We're out of time. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thanks for the knock right at the end with no ability to respond.
Hang in there. I got to rebook you. I got to shut the show down. Hang in there a second.
Bill, I got to